She walked into that Manhattan skyscraper as nobody, just another analyst trying to prove herself in a world that didn't know her father owned the entire building. He was the VP with the iron rule: never date employees, never blur the lines, never let anyone close enough to hurt him. But when he humiliated her in front of the entire office, calling her careless and reminding everyone he'd never break his rule for someone like her, he had no idea he'd just insulted the one woman who could destroy his career with a single word. What happened next? A dangerous partnership built on lies, a love that threatened to expose everything, and the night he walked into the founder's office to find her calling the billionaire CEO Dad. If you think you know how this ends, you're wrong, because this story about trust, betrayal, and second chances will hit you harder than any boardroom takedown. Subscribe right now and tell me in the comments, would you forgive someone who lied about who they really were, or is trust something you can never get back? The glass doors of Carter Global Holdings reflected the morning sun like a mirror. Naomi Ellis stood on the sidewalk, staring up at the tower that stretched toward the sky. 42 floors of steel and ambition, her father's empire. But nobody here could know that. She adjusted the strap of her leather bag and smoothed down her navy blazer. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The day she'd been planning for months. The day she would prove she could make it on her own merit, without the Carter name opening doors for her. The revolving door spun, and Naomi stepped inside. The lobby took her breath away. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. People in sharp suits moved with purpose, their shoes clicking against the stone. The air smelled like expensive coffee and ambition. Naomi Ellis? A young woman with a tablet approached, her smile bright and professional. I'm Rachel from HR. Welcome to your first day. Naomi returned the smile, though her stomach twisted with nerves. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Let me take you up to the 15th floor. You'll be meeting with Ethan Reed, our Vice President of Operations. He'll be your direct supervisor. The elevator ride felt endless. Naomi watched the numbers climb, each one bringing her closer to this moment of truth. She'd researched Ethan Reed thoroughly, 32 years old, Harvard MBA, known for turning around failing departments with ruthless efficiency. He had a reputation for being brilliant, but demanding. She'd seen his photo on the company website. Sharp jaw, serious eyes, dark hair, always perfectly styled. He looked like someone who'd never made a mistake in his life. The elevator doors opened onto a floor buzzing with activity, cubicles stretched in neat rows, interrupted by glass-walled conference rooms. Everyone looked busy, focused, driven. Mr. Reed's office is at the end, Rachel said, leading the way. Through the glass walls of the corner office, Naomi could see him. Ethan Reed sat behind a massive desk, his attention fixed on his computer screen. Even from here, she could see the intensity in his posture. Everything about him screamed control. Rachel knocked gently. Mr. Reed, Naomi Ellis is here. Come in. His voice was deep, professional, efficient. Naomi stepped inside, and the door clicked shut behind her. Ethan looked up from his screen. For a moment, their eyes met, and Naomi felt something shift in the air. He was more striking in person than in photos. Strong features, gray eyes that seemed to see right through her. But there was no warmth in his gaze, just assessment. Have a seat, Ms. Ellis. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Naomi sat, keeping her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. Professional, confident, just another analyst starting her career. Your resume is impressive, Ethan said, glancing at his screen. Columbia for undergrad, strong GPA, 2 years at a consulting firm, but you're starting here as a junior analyst. Why? The question caught her off guard. I wanted to work for a company with real impact. Carter Global has a reputation for... For what? Ethan interrupted. His gaze was sharp. For being a stepping stone? A name on a resume? Heat crept up Naomi's neck. No, for innovation, for building something that matters. Pretty words. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. But words are easy. I need people who can deliver results. This isn't a training program. We don't have time to hold anyone's hand. Naomi lifted her chin. I don't need my hand held. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect? Annoyance? She couldn't tell. Good. Because you'll be working on the Thompson merger analysis. It's complex, detailed work. I expect the preliminary report on my desk by Friday. That's 4 days from now. 4 days. For a merger analysis that would normally take 2 weeks. Naomi's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. I'll have it ready. We'll see. Ethan turned back to his computer. A clear dismissal. Rachel will show you to your desk. Naomi stood, surprised by the abrupt end to their meeting. "Thank you, Mr. Reed." He didn't look up. "Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you prove you belong here." The words stung, but Naomi walked out with her head high. She wouldn't let him see that he'd rattled her. Rachel led her to a cubicle near the windows. "Don't worry about Mr. Reed," she said in a low voice. "He's tough on everyone at first, but if you do good work, he'll notice." "I plan to do more than good work," Naomi said quietly. She set down her bag and logged into her computer. The Thompson merger files appeared on her screen. Hundreds of pages of financial statements, legal documents, market analyses. 4 days. She could do this. She had to. Across the office, through the glass walls, she could see Ethan at his desk. He was on the phone now, his expression intense as he spoke. Everything about him radiated control and certainty. Naomi opened the first file and got to work. 2 days later, Naomi's eyes burned from staring at spreadsheets. She'd barely left her desk except to grab coffee and use the bathroom. The merger analysis was coming together, but it was slow, meticulous work. The office had emptied hours ago. Only a few lights remained on across the floor. Naomi rubbed her temples and reached for her now cold coffee. She needed a break, but Friday morning would come fast. "You're still here." Naomi jumped, nearly spilling her coffee. Ethan stood beside her cubicle. His tie loosened, his jacket draped over his arm. She hadn't heard him approach. "I'm finishing the Thompson analysis," she said. He glanced at her screen, then at the stack of printed reports on her desk. "It's almost 11. "I know what time it is." His eyebrow lifted slightly. "I didn't tell you to work through the night. You told me to have it done by Friday." Naomi met his gaze. "I'm making sure it's done right." For a long moment, Ethan just looked at her. Then he pulled up a chair from an empty cubicle and sat down beside her desk. "Show me what you have so far." Naomi hesitated, surprised. "I thought you wanted the finished product." "I do. But if you're headed in the wrong direction, better to know now than Friday morning." He gestured to her screen. "Walk me through it." She pulled up her analysis, talking him through her findings. The numbers, the projections, the risks she'd identified. As she spoke, she forgot to be nervous. This was what she was good at, seeing patterns, understanding what the data meant. Ethan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "That's solid work," he said finally. "Better than I expected." Naomi tried not to smile. "Thank you." "But you missed something." He leaned forward, pointing to a section on her screen. "Look at their subsidiary in Singapore. The numbers don't match the parent company's reports. Someone's hiding debt." Naomi's eyes widened as she followed his finger. He was right. She'd overlooked it completely. "I should have caught that. Now you have." Ethan stood, grabbing his jacket. "Go home, get some sleep. You're no good to anyone if you're running on fumes." "I need to add this to the analysis." "Tomorrow," he said firmly. "It's late." Naomi saved her work and shut down her computer. As she gathered her things, she noticed Ethan was waiting by the elevator, his phone in his hand. "You don't have to wait for me," she said. "It's late," he repeated. "I'll walk you out." They rode the elevator in silence. In the enclosed space, Naomi became acutely aware of how tall he was, how he smelled faintly of coffee and expensive cologne. The air felt charged somehow, heavy with something she couldn't name. The lobby was empty except for the night security guard. Outside, the street was quiet, the usual Manhattan chaos muted by the late hour. "There's a car service waiting," Ethan said, nodding toward a black sedan at the curb. "It'll take you home." Naomi blinked. "That's really not necessary. Carter Global provides car service for employees working past 10. His tone left no room for argument. "It's policy." She wanted to refuse, to prove she didn't need special treatment. But she was exhausted, and the subway at this hour wasn't always safe. "Thank you." As she walked toward the car, Ethan called out, "Miss Ellis?" She turned back. "You did good work tonight. Keep it up." Something warm bloomed in Naomi's chest. She nodded, not trusting her voice, and got into the car. As the sedan pulled away, she watched Ethan's figure grow smaller through the back window. He stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching the car disappear into the night. Friday arrived with bright sunshine and renewed energy. Naomi submitted her analysis at 9 in the morning, a full hour before deadline. She'd added Ethan's feedback, double-checked every number, and written a clear executive summary. Now she just had to wait. At noon, the department gathered for a team lunch at a restaurant down the street. Naomi found herself seated between Rachel and another analyst named David. Across the table, Ethan sat with Mark Benson, the chief operating officer. and a striking woman Naomi recognized as Vivian Cross, the head of PR. "So, Naomi," David said, leaning closer, "how are you surviving your first week with Reed as your boss?" "It's been intense," Naomi admitted. "But good," Rachel laughed. "That's one way to put it. Ethan's got a reputation. He works harder than anyone else and expects the same from his team." "Doesn't he have a rule about dating?" Someone else chimed in. "Like he never dates anyone from work." Vivian's voice carried down the table. "Oh, Ethan definitely has his rules." She smiled at him, a knowing look in her eyes. "Very strict about keeping his personal and professional lives separate." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. "I heard he turned down a VP from finance last year," David said. "She asked him out, and he said no, without even thinking about it." "Because he's smart," Mark said, his tone gentle but firm. "Office relationships complicate things. Ethan knows that." Naomi felt a strange twist in her stomach. She told herself it didn't matter. She wasn't here to date. She was here to work, to prove herself, to earn a place in this company on her own terms. The waiter brought their food, and conversation shifted to work projects and weekend plans. Naomi picked at her salad, half listening to Rachel's story about her roommate's dating disasters. Then she reached for her water glass and knocked over her coffee cup instead. Hot coffee spread across the table in a dark wave. Naomi lunged for the napkins, but it was too late. The coffee had reached Ethan's side of the table, soaking into the papers he'd brought with him. "Oh my God," Naomi breathed, watching the brown liquid spread across what looked like important documents. "I'm so sorry." Ethan grabbed the papers, shaking them out. Coffee dripped onto his shirt, his tie. His face went tight with frustration. "I didn't mean to," Naomi started. "Just—" Ethan stood abruptly, holding the ruined documents away from his body. "Just be more careful." The table had gone silent. Everyone stared. Vivian handed Ethan more napkins, her hand lingering on his arm. "It's okay," she said softly. "Accidents happen." "I really am sorry," Naomi tried again. Ethan looked at her, and his expression was cold, closed off. "It's fine. These things happen when people are careless." The words hit like a slap. Naomi felt heat flood her face. Around the table, people looked away, suddenly very interested in their food. "Good thing you don't date employees," Vivian said, her voice light but pointed. "Imagine if this had been a date." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled around the table. Ethan's eyes flashed. "I don't date employees," he said clearly, deliberately. "I never have, and I never will. It's a line I don't cross." He wasn't looking at anyone in particular, but somehow the words felt aimed at Naomi. She sat frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. "I need to go change," Ethan said, gathering his ruined papers. "Mark, I'll meet you back at the office." He walked out without another glance at Naomi. The conversation slowly resumed, but Naomi barely heard it. Her hands shook as she picked up her fork. She couldn't eat, couldn't think past the humiliation burning through her chest. "Don't take it personally," Rachel whispered. "He's just particular about his things." But it felt personal. It felt like every doubt Naomi had about belonging here had just been confirmed in front of everyone. She made it through the rest of lunch on autopilot. When they finally walked back to the office, she went straight to the bathroom and locked herself in a stall. Only then did she let the tears come. She pressed her hands to her face, trying to muffle the sound. This was ridiculous. She was crying over spilled coffee and a man's harsh words. But it wasn't just that, was it? It was the shame of failing, even in such a small way. It was being singled out, dismissed, reminded that she didn't quite fit. It was her father watching from his office 42 floors above, unable to defend her, unable to acknowledge her. It was proving that maybe she really couldn't make it on her own. Naomi took a shaky breath and wiped her eyes. No, she wouldn't let one bad moment define her. She'd come here with a purpose, and spilled coffee wouldn't stop her. She washed her face, fixed her makeup, and walked back to her desk with her head high. That night she stayed late again, and the night after that. She poured herself into her work, determined to be so good that no one could question whether she belonged. 3 nights later, Naomi was still at her desk at 9 o'clock. The office was quiet, most people having left hours ago. She'd been analyzing market trends for a new project, losing track of time as numbers and patterns filled her screen. She heard footsteps and looked up. Ethan stood at the entrance to her cubicle, a folder in his hand. "Ms. Ellis." He seemed surprised to see her. "You're here late again." "I'm working on the market analysis," she said, keeping her voice professional. He nodded slowly. "I read your Thompson report. It was excellent, exactly what we needed." Naomi blinked. She hadn't expected that. Thank you. You caught things my senior analysts missed. He paused, and something in his expression softened. I wanted you to know that. I appreciate it. She meant it. Ethan glanced at her screen. Market trends for the Henderson project? Yes. I'm trying to understand how consumer behavior has shifted in the last quarter. May I? He gestured to her screen. Naomi hesitated, then nodded. Ethan pulled up a chair, just like that night a week ago, and sat beside her desk. He studied her work, his brow furrowed in concentration. You're looking at this from the wrong angle, he said after a moment. You're tracking what consumers are buying, but you should be tracking why they're buying it, the psychology behind the purchases. He reached over and pulled up a different data set, his fingers moving quickly over her keyboard. As he worked, Naomi noticed things she hadn't before. The small scar on his hand, the way his hair fell slightly into his eyes when he leaned forward, the intensity in his face when he focused on a problem. See? He pointed to the screen. When you layer the psychological data over the purchasing trends, patterns emerge. People aren't just buying products. They're buying solutions to problems, feelings, identities. Naomi leaned closer, following his logic. He was right. She'd been so focused on the numbers that she'd missed the story behind them. That's brilliant, she said softly. Ethan glanced at her, and for the first time she saw something other than professional distance in his eyes. Interest, maybe even respect. It's about seeing the whole picture, he said. Numbers tell us what happened. Understanding people tells us why. They worked together for the next hour, rebuilding Naomi's analysis with this new perspective. As they talked, the conversation shifted from work to ideas, to philosophy, to what they believed about business and ethics, and doing work that mattered. My father went bankrupt when I was 17, Ethan said suddenly, his voice quiet. He'd built a successful company, then lost everything because he trusted the wrong people. I watched him fall apart. Watched my mother struggle to hold our family together. Naomi felt her heart squeeze. I'm sorry. It taught me something important. Ethan looked at her, his grey eyes serious. Trust has to be earned. Success has to be built on integrity, not shortcuts, and you can't rely on anyone else to save you. That sounds lonely, Naomi said softly. Maybe. He held her gaze. But it's safe. The air between them felt heavy, charged with something Naomi couldn't name. She wanted to tell him she understood, that she knew what it felt like to be afraid of trust, of vulnerability, that she was keeping her own secrets, building her own walls. But she couldn't, not without exposing everything. It's almost 10, Ethan said, breaking the moment. You should go home. So should you. He smiled, actually smiled, and the expression transformed his face, made him look younger, less guarded. Probably. They packed up together. As they waited for the elevator, Ethan said, I'm sorry about the other day at lunch. I was frustrated about the documents, and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. Naomi looked at him in surprise. You don't have to apologize. Yes, I do. His voice was firm. You made a mistake, and I made it bigger than it needed to be. I'm sorry. The elevator arrived, and they stepped inside. As the doors closed, Naomi felt that strange current again. The awareness of being alone with him in a small space, the way he smelled, the warmth of his presence, the sudden vulnerability in his eyes. Apology accepted, she said. He smiled again, and Naomi's heart did something complicated in her chest. When they reached the lobby, another car was waiting. Ethan walked her to it just like before. Thank you, Naomi said, for the help tonight, and the ride. Thank you for staying late, Ethan replied. It's good to have someone on the team who cares as much as I do. As the car pulled away, Naomi looked back. Ethan stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching her leave. When he saw her looking, he lifted one hand in a small wave. Naomi waved back, her chest full of something warm and dangerous. This was a problem, a big problem. She couldn't develop feelings for Ethan Reed. He was her supervisor. He'd made it clear he didn't date employees. And even if he did, what would happen when he found out who she really was? But as Manhattan's lights blurred past the car window, Naomi couldn't stop thinking about his smile, about the way he'd opened up to her, about the person she'd glimpsed beneath all that control. She was in trouble, and she knew it. The next morning, Naomi walked into the office to find it buzzing with unusual energy, people clustered in groups, talking in excited voices. What's going on? She asked Rachel. You haven't heard. Charles Carter is back. He just walked in about 10 minutes ago. Naomi's blood went cold. He's back? Today? Yeah, surprise visit. Nobody knew he was coming. Rachel grinned. He's been traveling for months, doing who knows what. Rumor is he's planning something big. Naomi's pulse hammered. She'd known this day would come. Her father had warned her he'd return eventually, but she'd thought she'd have more time to prepare. "Are you okay?" Rachel asked. "You look pale." "I'm fine," Naomi forced a smile. "Just surprised." At 10 o'clock, everyone was called to the 15th floor conference room for an all-hands meeting. Naomi took a seat in the back, trying to stay invisible. The room fell silent as the door opened. Charles Carter walked in, and Naomi's breath caught. She hadn't seen her father in person for 3 months. He looked older somehow, his hair grayer at the temples, new lines around his eyes. But he still carried himself with that quiet authority that had always defined him. Their eyes met for just a second, a flicker of recognition, of love, of warning. Then he looked away, addressing the room. "Good morning, everyone. I know my return is unexpected, but I wanted to come back and see what you've all been building in my absence." His voice was warm, genuine. Charles had always been good with people. It was part of what made him a great leader. "I'll be here for the next few weeks, meeting with department heads, sitting in on projects. I want to understand where we are and where we're going." He smiled. "So don't be surprised if I show up in your meetings unannounced." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Naomi watched Ethan seated near the front. He was paying close attention, his expression respectful but assessing. This was his boss's boss, the man who could make or break his career with a single decision. "I also want to thank Ethan Reed," Charles continued. "While I've been away, he's kept operations running smoothly. The numbers speak for themselves." Ethan nodded, clearly pleased but trying not to show it. As the meeting wrapped up, people filed out. Naomi tried to slip away quickly, but a hand caught her arm. "Ms. Ellis." It was Mark Benson, the COO. "Mr. Carter would like to meet with some of our newer analysts. Would you have a few minutes?" Naomi's stomach dropped. She couldn't refuse. "Of course." A small group gathered in Charles's temporary office. 3 junior analysts, including Naomi, plus Ethan and Mark. Charles sat behind the desk, his manner relaxed and friendly. "I like to meet our new people," he said. "Get a sense of the talent we're bringing in, so tell me about yourselves." The other analysts went first, talking about their backgrounds and what they hoped to achieve at Carter Global. Naomi's mind raced, trying to prepare what she'd say. "And you, Ms. Ellis?" Charles turned to her, his expression carefully neutral. "What brought you to our company?" Every eye in the room was on her, especially Ethan's. "I wanted to work somewhere that made a real difference," Naomi said, keeping her voice steady. "Carter Global has a reputation for integrity and innovation. Those values matter to me." "Integrity." Charles repeated the word thoughtfully. "That's interesting. What does integrity mean to you?" It was a test. Naomi knew it. Her father was asking her to define the very thing she was compromising by hiding her identity. "It means being honest," she said carefully, "even when it's hard, even when you have something to lose." Charles held her gaze for a long moment. "Well said. I hope you'll live up to those words during your time here." The words carried weight, a reminder, a warning. "Ethan tells me your work has been impressive," Charles added. "He specifically mentioned your analysis on the Thompson merger." Heat crept up Naomi's neck. She glanced at Ethan, who looked surprised that Charles knew about her work. "Thank you, sir," she managed. "Keep it up." Charles smiled, and for just a second, she saw her father instead of the CEO. "We need people with your talent and dedication." The meeting ended shortly after. As everyone filed out, Charles caught Naomi's eye and made a subtle gesture toward his office. She understood. He wanted to talk privately. But Ethan was waiting for her in the hallway. "That was impressive," he said. "Not many people can articulate their values so clearly on the spot." "I just said what I believe," Naomi replied. Mr. Carter seemed impressed too. Ethan glanced back at the office door. "He doesn't usually single out junior analysts like that." Naomi's pulse quickened. Maybe he was just being nice. "Charles Carter doesn't do anything without a reason." Ethan studied her, curiosity in his eyes. "There's something different about you, Ms. Ellis. I just can't figure out what it is yet." Before Naomi could respond, he walked away, leaving her standing in the hallway with her heart racing and her secret feeling heavier than ever. Later that evening, Naomi returned to her father's office. The floor was empty, everyone gone for the day. Charles stood by the window looking out at the Manhattan skyline. "You did well today," he said without turning around. "I almost gave us away." Naomi closed the door behind her. "But you didn't." He turned to face her, his expression soft. "I'm proud of you, Naomi. You're doing exactly what you said you would. proving yourself on your own merits. It's hard, she admitted, pretending I don't know you, watching you from a distance. I know. He crossed to her and took her hands. But it's what you wanted. Time to build your own reputation before anyone knows you're my daughter. What if they hate me when they find out? What if they think I was lying to them? Were you lying? Charles asked gently. Or were you just protecting yourself while you proved your worth? Naomi didn't have an answer. Remember our agreement, her father said. You're here as Naomi Ellis, not Carter. 3 months to show what you can do. After that, we'll figure out how to handle the reveal. And if I want to keep hiding it, then we'll talk about that too. He squeezed her hands. But secrets have a way of coming out, sweetheart. Usually when we least expect them. Naomi thought about Ethan, about the way he'd smiled at her last night, about how he'd apologized, opened up, let her see beneath his armor, about how he'd feel when he learned the truth. Be careful, Naomi, Charles said, as if reading her mind. I see the way you look at him. I don't. Yes, you do. His voice was kind but firm. And maybe he looks at you the same way. But that young man has principles. He won't forgive deception easily. Then maybe I should tell him now before what? Before you care too much? Charles shook his head. You're 3 weeks into this arrangement. Give it time. Figure out who you are here before you complicate it with your last name. Naomi nodded, but doubt gnawed at her chest. As she left the building that night, she looked up at the tower stretching into the darkening sky. Somewhere in there, Ethan was probably still working, still pushing himself, still maintaining that perfect control, and she was falling for him, even though she knew it was the worst possible idea. She pulled out her phone and texted her roommate Lydia, having second thoughts about this whole thing. The response came immediately. About the job or about the hot VP? Naomi smiled despite herself. Both. Too late now, girl. You're already in it. Might as well see where it goes. Might as well, Naomi thought. But the knot of worry in her chest told her this wasn't going to end well, not unless she found a way to be honest. And honesty meant risking everything she'd worked so hard to build. 2 weeks passed in a blur of meetings, late nights, and stolen glances across conference rooms. Naomi found herself looking for Ethan without meaning to. She'd catch sight of him in the hallway, and her pulse would quicken. She'd hear his voice in a meeting and feel something warm spread through her chest. It was getting harder to pretend she didn't feel anything. On a rainy Monday morning, the entire department gathered for an announcement. Mark Benson stood at the front of the conference room with Ethan beside him. As most of you know, Mark began, Carter Global hosts an annual charity gala. It's one of our biggest events. Clients, investors, community leaders all attend. This year's gala is in 3 weeks, and we're dedicating it to educational programs for underserved youth. Excited murmurs rippled through the room. Ethan will be leading the planning committee, Mark continued, and he'll be selecting a team to help coordinate logistics, guest management, and presentations. Ethan stepped forward, his expression all business. I need people who can handle details, think on their feet, and represent this company well. I'll be announcing the team by end of day. Naomi told herself not to hope. She was too new, too junior. He'd pick senior analysts with experience. But that afternoon, an email appeared in her inbox. See me at 4 p.m. ER. Her stomach flipped. At 4 o'clock sharp, Naomi knocked on Ethan's office door. Come in. He was standing by the window, his tie slightly loosened. He looked tired. You wanted to see me? I'm putting you on the gala committee. He turned to face her. You'll be working directly with me on the event coordination. Naomi blinked. Thank you. I won't let you down. I know you won't. He moved to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. This is everything from last year's event. Review it tonight. We have our first planning meeting tomorrow at 8. I'll be ready. As she reached for the folder, their fingers brushed. It was brief, accidental, but Naomi felt electricity shoot up her arm. From the way Ethan's eyes widened slightly, she thought maybe he'd felt it too. He pulled his hand back quickly. That's all. But as Naomi walked to the door, he called out, Ms. Ellis? She turned back. I chose you because you're good at what you do. Not because, He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Just wanted you to know that. I understand, Naomi said softly. Thank you for the opportunity. That night, Lydia found her sprawled on their apartment couch, surrounded by event planning documents and her laptop. Girl, you look stressed. Lydia dropped her bag and kicked off her heels. And you've been working every night this week. What's going on? Big project. Naomi rubbed her eyes. The company's charity gala. I'm on the planning committee. That sounds fancy. Lydia flopped down beside her. Is the hot VP involved? Lydia, I'm just asking. Lydia grinned. You've been mentioning him a lot lately. Ethan said this and Ethan thinks that. It's cute. It's nothing, Naomi insisted. We just work together. Uh-huh. Lydia picked up one of the documents. And does he look at you the way you look at him? Heat flooded Naomi's face. I don't look at him any particular way. Sure you don't? Lydia's smile softened. But seriously, Naomi, be careful. You've got enough complications with the whole secret identity thing, adding workplace romance on top of that. I know. Naomi sighed. Trust me, I know. Does he know who your father is? No. Nobody does except HR and my dad. That's the whole point. Lydia was quiet for a moment. What happens when he finds out? I don't know, Naomi admitted. I'm trying not to think about it. But she did think about it. Late at night, when sleep wouldn't come, in quiet moments at her desk, every time Ethan smiled at her or their eyes met across a room, what would he think of her when the truth came out? Would he understand? Or would he see her as just another privileged person playing games? The gala planning consumed the next 2 weeks. Naomi worked alongside Ethan and 3 other team members, coordinating with caterers, reviewing guest lists, designing presentations. She discovered that Ethan was different when focused on something he cared about, more open, more willing to listen to ideas. He still demanded excellence, but he also gave credit where it was due. I like this, he said one afternoon, studying Naomi's proposal for the youth program presentations. You're suggesting we let the kids speak for themselves instead of having adults talk about them. That's smart. They have voices, Naomi said. We should let people hear them directly. Ethan looked at her with something like admiration. You think differently than most people here. It's refreshing. The compliment stayed with Naomi for days, but not everything was smooth. Vivian Cross had taken an interest in the gala planning, inserting herself into meetings and decisions. She always positioned herself near Ethan, touching his arm when she spoke, laughing at his comments, and she always seemed to be watching Naomi. One Thursday afternoon, Naomi went to the office kitchen to make tea. She was alone until Vivian walked in. Naomi Ellis, Vivian said, her tone light but edged with something sharp. The new rising star. Hi, Vivian. Naomi kept her voice friendly. Vivian moved to the coffee maker, her heels clicking on the tile. Ethan speaks very highly of your work. That's unusual for him. He doesn't compliment people easily. I'm just trying to do my job well. Of course. Vivian smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Just be careful. Ethan has very firm boundaries when it comes to workplace relationships. He's been burned before. Naomi's chest tightened. I'm not trying to... I'm sure you're not. Vivian poured her coffee with precise, controlled movements. I'm just offering some friendly advice. Ethan and I dated for 2 years. I know him better than anyone. He doesn't do office romance, ever. So if you're developing feelings, you should stop now. It won't end well for you. The words hit like ice water. Thanks for the advice, Naomi managed. Just looking out for you. Vivian's smile turned sympathetic, but her eyes were cold. We women have to stick together, right? She walked out, leaving Naomi standing alone with her tea going cold in her hands. That night, Naomi couldn't focus on work. She kept hearing Vivian's words. He's been burned before. What did that mean? Had something happened between them? Was Vivian warning her off or threatening her? She was still distracted the next morning when Charles called an impromptu management review. Naomi sat in the back of the conference room, trying to be invisible, while department heads presented their quarterly reports. Ethan was presenting the operations update. He was brilliant as always, fielding questions with confidence and clarity. Charles listened intently, occasionally nodding or asking follow-up questions. Then Charles turned to the gala planning. Ethan, I understand you've put together a strong team for the event. Who's leading the youth program presentation? Naomi Ellis, Ethan said without hesitation. She designed the whole segment. Her approach is innovative and authentic. Charles's eyes found Naomi in the back of the room. For a moment, father and daughter looked at each other. Pride flickered in his expression. Excellent choice, Charles said. Naomi Carter. He stopped abruptly, his face paling slightly. I mean, Naomi Ellis, I apologize. I was thinking of someone else. The room went silent. Naomi's heart stopped. She felt every eye turn toward her, felt Ethan's gaze sharpen with sudden attention. Easy mistake, Mark said quickly, smoothly. Lots of names to keep track of. Charles recovered, his professional mask sliding back into place. Indeed. My apologies, Miss Ellis. I look forward to seeing your work at the gala. The meeting continued, but Naomi couldn't breathe properly. Her pulse hammered. That had been close. Too close. When the meeting ended, she tried to leave quickly, but Ethan caught up with her in the hallway. "Miss Ellis." His voice was measured, careful. "That was strange. Mr. Carter calling you by the wrong name. He said it was a mistake." Naomi kept walking. "Carter is his last name." Ethan fell into step beside her. "Why would he accidentally call you that?" "I don't know." The lie tasted bitter. "Maybe he's tired. He's been working long hours since he got back." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure there's nothing you want to tell me?" Naomi stopped walking and turned to face him. His grey eyes searched hers, looking for answers she couldn't give. "I'm sure," she said softly. "It was just a mistake." But doubt flickered in his expression, and Naomi knew, she knew, that he didn't quite believe her. That evening, Naomi went to her father's office after everyone else had gone home. "That was careless," she said without preamble. "You almost gave me away." Charles looked up from his desk, guilt written across his face. "I know, I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking." Ethan noticed. Naomi paced in front of the windows. "He's suspicious now. He's going to start asking questions. Then maybe it's time to tell him the truth." "No." Naomi shook her head firmly. "Not yet. The gala is in a week. After that, I'll have been here 2 months. I'll have proven myself. Then we can figure out how to handle the announcement. And if he figures it out before then," Naomi's chest ached, "then I'll deal with it." Charles stood and came around the desk. He pulled her into a hug, something he couldn't do in public, something she'd missed desperately during these weeks of pretending they were strangers. "I hate this," he said quietly. "Watching you work so hard and not being able to acknowledge you as my daughter." "It's what I asked for," Naomi reminded him. "I needed to know if I could make it on my own. And you have. You're brilliant, Naomi. Everyone sees it. Everyone except the one person whose opinion matters most," she murmured. Charles pulled back to look at her. "Ethan Reed." Naomi nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. "You care about him." "I didn't mean to." Tears pricked her eyes. "But he's not what I expected. He's brilliant and dedicated, and underneath all that control, he's kind. He's just afraid to show it. And when he finds out you've been lying to him?" "I haven't lied." But even as Naomi said it, she knew it wasn't true. Omission was still dishonesty. "I just haven't told him everything." "Naomi." "I know, Dad, I know." She wiped her eyes. "1 more week. After the gala, I'll figure out how to tell him. I promise." But she wasn't sure she could keep that promise, because telling Ethan the truth meant risking everything: her job, her reputation, and the fragile connection growing between them. 3 days before the gala, Ethan called Naomi into his office. "We need to do a site visit at the venue," he said. "Make sure everything's set up correctly. Can you come with me tomorrow afternoon?" Of course. The next day they took a car to the Plaza Hotel, where the gala would be held. The ballroom was stunning. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, walls draped in elegant fabric. Workers were setting up tables and arranging flowers. "This is beautiful," Naomi breathed. "It should be. It costs enough." But Ethan was smiling. "Come on, let's check the staging area." They spent 2 hours walking through every detail. The stage placement, the lighting, the sound system. Ethan was meticulous, checking and rechecking everything. "You're nervous," Naomi observed. "This gala matters." He adjusted a microphone stand. "It's not just about the company. It's about the kids we're trying to help. If we mess this up, we waste an opportunity to make a real difference." "We won't mess it up," Naomi said firmly. "You've planned everything perfectly." He looked at her, and something softened in his expression. "We've planned it. This was a team effort, and a lot of the best ideas were yours." The compliment warmed her. "Thank you for trusting me with this. You've earned that trust." They finished the inspection and walked back through the hotel lobby. Outside, rain poured down, drumming against the windows. "We should wait it out," Ethan said. "The car won't be here for another 20 minutes anyway." They found seats by a tall window overlooking Fifth Avenue. The rain created a grey curtain, blurring the city beyond. "Can I ask you something?" Naomi said. "Sure. Why did you choose me for this project? I'm the newest person on the team. You could have picked someone with more experience." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Because you understand what we're trying to do. Most people see the gala as a networking event or a PR opportunity, but you see it as a chance to actually help people. That's rare." "How do you know that's what I see?" "Because of how you talk about the youth program. Because you wanted the kids to tell their own stories instead of having adults speak for them. Because you stayed late 3 nights in a row making sure the presentations were perfect. He looked at her, his grey eyes intense. You care, really care, and that matters more than experience. Naomi's throat tightened. You care too. Maybe more than anyone. Maybe. A sad smile crossed his face. My father cared too. That's what made losing everything so hard for him. He'd built something he believed in, and when it fell apart, it broke him. That must have been terrible to watch. It was. Ethan's voice was rough. I was 17, old enough to understand what was happening, but too young to help. I watched him go from this confident, successful man to someone who couldn't get out of bed, who looked at his family like he'd failed us. That wasn't his fault. Wasn't it? Ethan turned back to the window. He trusted people he shouldn't have, believed in partnerships that were built on lies. If he'd been more careful, more guarded, he would have been alone, Naomi said softly. Trust is a risk, but without it, what do we have? Ethan looked at her, something vulnerable in his eyes. What if the risk is too great? What if trusting someone means losing everything? The question hung between them, heavy with meaning. Naomi knew he wasn't just talking about his father anymore. Then you have to decide, she said quietly, if the possibility of something real is worth the risk of getting hurt. They sat in silence, watching the rain. The space between them felt charged, electric. Naomi was acutely aware of how close they were sitting, how easy it would be to reach over and take his hand. I have a rule, Ethan said suddenly, about not dating employees. You probably heard about it. Naomi's heart raced. I've heard something about that. I made that rule for good reasons, because workplace relationships complicate things, because mixing personal feelings with professional responsibilities is a recipe for disaster. He paused. But lately, I've been questioning that rule. The world seemed to stop. Naomi couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Why? She whispered. Ethan turned to face her fully. Because there's someone who makes me want to take that risk. Someone who challenges me and frustrates me, and makes me believe that maybe trust isn't as dangerous as I thought. Ethan, I know I shouldn't say this. I know it's unprofessional, but I can't stop thinking about you, Naomi. About the way you see the world. About who you are when you think no one's watching. His voice dropped lower. And I need you to tell me if I'm completely out of line here. If I've misread everything between us. Naomi's heart felt like it might burst. This was the moment. She should tell him the truth. Should explain who she really was before this went any further. But all she could think about was how he'd looked at her, how he'd opened up to her, how for the first time in her life someone saw her, just Naomi, without the Carter name coloring their perception. You haven't misread anything, she said. Relief and something like joy flashed across his face. So I'm not crazy. You feel this too. I feel it too. For a long moment they just looked at each other. The rain continued outside. The hotel lobby bustled around them, but in that moment, nothing else existed. This is dangerous, Ethan said. I know. We work together. It could get complicated. I know that too. And we should probably talk about boundaries and how to handle... Naomi laughed softly. Ethan, stop overthinking it. He smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. That's harder than it sounds, I've noticed. The car arrived, ending the moment. But as they drove back to the office through rain-slicked streets, everything felt different, changed. Dangerous, Naomi thought. Lydia's word echoed in her head. This was so dangerous, because now Ethan had feelings for her. Now there was something real between them. And when he found out she'd been lying, when he learned she was Charles Carter's daughter, the billionaire's secret heir working undercover, it would destroy him. It would destroy them both. But sitting beside him in the car, feeling the warmth of his presence, Naomi couldn't bring herself to tell him. Not yet. Just a few more days, she told herself. After the gala, after she'd proven herself completely, then she'd find a way to tell him the truth. She just hoped it wouldn't be too late. The day before the gala, everything fell apart. Naomi was working late, as usual, putting finishing touches on the presentation files. Most people had gone home. The office was quiet, except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of cleaning crews. She needed to deliver some documents to Charles's office. He'd asked to review the final program before tomorrow night. Naomi gathered the papers and headed to the executive floor. The elevator ride up felt longer than usual, 42 floors, her father's domain. The executive suite was empty, except for a single light coming from Charles's office. Naomi walked down the hallway, her footsteps muted by thick carpet. She pushed open the door. "Dad, I have the..." She stopped. Ethan stood in the middle of the office, frozen, his face white with shock. Charles sat behind his desk, looking between his daughter and the man she'd been falling for. The silence stretched, terrible and complete. "Naomi," Charles said carefully, "I didn't know you were coming up." But Naomi couldn't speak, could only stare at Ethan's face as understanding crashed over him like a wave. She'd called Charles Dad. "Mr. Reed brought up some reports," Charles continued, his voice steady despite the disaster unfolding. "We were just finishing—" "You called him Dad," Ethan said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "She just called you Dad." Naomi's mouth opened, but no words came out. "I can explain," Charles began. "You're his daughter." Ethan looked at Naomi like he'd never seen her before. "How, you're Charles Carter's daughter? That's why he called you Carter in the meeting. That's why—" He ran a hand through his hair, his movements sharp and angry. "God, I'm an idiot." "Ethan, please." Naomi took a step toward him. "Don't." The word was hard, final. "Don't come near me. Let me explain." "Explain what?" His voice rose, all his usual control shattering. "Explain that you've been lying to everyone for 2 months? Explain that you're not who you said you were? That everything between us was built on deception? I never lied to you. You've been lying this entire time." Ethan's face was flushed now, his eyes bright with hurt and fury. "Working here under a fake name, pretending to be just another analyst, letting me—" He stopped, his jaw clenched tight. "Did you laugh about it? About how I didn't know, about how I was falling for the boss's daughter and didn't even realize it? It wasn't like that." Tears streamed down Naomi's face. "I wanted to prove myself. I needed to know if I could make it without my father's name. So you used a different name and made fools of all of us." "Ethan," Charles said, his voice firm, "that's enough. Naomi didn't mean to hurt anyone. With all due respect, sir, you don't get to tell me what's enough." Ethan's voice shook. "You're part of this deception too. How many people know?" "Just HR and Naomi's immediate supervisor," Charles said quietly. "And you thought that was acceptable? To let your daughter infiltrate your own company?" "She didn't infiltrate anything. She earned her position here, under false pretenses." Ethan gathered his papers with shaking hands. "I need to leave." "Ethan, please." Naomi moved toward him, desperate. "Just let me explain why—" He looked at her, and the pain in his eyes cut through her heart. "I told you about my father," he said, his voice breaking. "I told you how trust destroyed him, and you sat there and listened and said all the right things about taking risks and being vulnerable, while lying to my face the entire time. I wanted to tell you, but you didn't." He walked past her to the door. "That's the choice you made." "Ethan," he stopped in the doorway, but didn't turn around. "I have a rule about not dating employees. You know why? Because exactly this happens. Because people use relationships for advancement, for access, for games I don't want to play. I broke that rule for you, and this is what I get." Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a quiet click that echoed like a gunshot. Naomi stood frozen, tears pouring down her face. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the look of betrayal in Ethan's eyes. "Naomi," her father came around the desk. "Sweetheart, I lost him." Her voice broke. "I lost him and it's my own fault." Charles pulled her into his arms as she sobbed. "We'll fix this. We'll figure it out." But Naomi knew some things couldn't be fixed. Some trust, once broken, could never be repaired. She'd wanted to prove herself, to be loved for who she was, not whose daughter she was. Instead, she'd proven that she was exactly what Ethan feared most, someone who couldn't be trusted, someone who lied to get what she wanted. And now she'd lost the one thing that mattered more than any job, any reputation, any family name. She'd lost him. Naomi didn't sleep that night. She sat on her couch in the dark, staring at nothing. Her phone lay silent beside her. No calls, no messages, nothing from Ethan. Why would there be? She'd destroyed whatever trust existed between them. "Naomi." Lydia emerged from her bedroom wrapped in a robe. "It's 3 in the morning. You need to sleep." "I can't." Lydia sat down beside her and took her hand. "Tell me what happened." So Naomi did. She told her everything, walking into her father's office, Ethan's face when he realized the truth, the awful silence that followed. By the time she finished, fresh tears were streaming down her face. "Oh, honey." Lydia pulled her into a hug. "I'm so sorry. I should have told him sooner, before he had feelings for me, before I had feelings for him. You were scared. That's not an excuse." Naomi pulled away, wiping her eyes. "He trusted me with his story, with his fears, and I kept lying to him." "You weren't lying. You just weren't telling him everything. That's the same thing to someone like Ethan." Naomi's voice cracked. "His whole life is built on control and certainty. I took that away from him. Lydia was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? I don't know. The gala is tonight. I can't just not show up. Too many people are counting on me. But facing him, she shook her head. I don't know if I can. You're stronger than you think, Lydia said firmly. You'll get through tonight. Then you'll figure out what comes next. But as dawn broke over the city, Naomi wasn't sure she believed that. Walking into the office felt like walking into a firing squad. Naomi kept her head down, moving quickly to her desk. But she could feel eyes on her, hear whispers following her path. Rachel appeared at her cubicle, her expression sympathetic. Are you okay? People are saying, I'm fine. Naomi didn't look up from her computer. What are people saying? Rachel hesitated. That you're Charles Carter's daughter, that you've been working here under a fake name, that you and Ethan... She trailed off. It's true. Naomi's voice was flat. About my father, anyway. I'm his daughter. I've been using my mother's surname because I wanted to prove I could succeed on my own. Why didn't you just tell people? Because then I wouldn't know if they respected me for my work or because of who my father is. Naomi finally looked at Rachel. You understand that, right? I guess so. Rachel glanced around nervously. But people feel deceived, like you were spying on them or something. I wasn't spying, I was just working. I know that, but you know how office gossip works. Naomi did know, and she knew it was about to get worse. At 9 o'clock, she had to attend a pre-gala meeting. Everyone on the planning committee would be there, including Ethan. Her hands shook as she gathered her materials. She could do this. She had to do this. The gala was in 9 hours. Kids were depending on this event to showcase their programs. She couldn't let them down just because her personal life was falling apart. The conference room was full when she arrived. David and Rachel were there, along with 2 senior managers, and Ethan sitting at the head of the table, his expression carved from stone. He didn't look at her as she sat down. Let's get started, Ethan said, his voice crisp and professional. We have final checks to go through before tonight. For the next hour, they reviewed every detail of the gala. Ethan was efficient, thorough, completely businesslike. He addressed everyone's questions and concerns. He confirmed assignments and timelines. He spoke to Naomi exactly once. Ms. Ellis, you'll present the youth program segment at 8:30. Your materials are prepared. Yes, her voice barely worked. Everything's ready. Good. That was it. No warmth, no acknowledgement of everything that had existed between them just yesterday. He treated her like a stranger. It hurt worse than anger would have. When the meeting ended, Naomi tried to catch him. Ethan, can we please talk? I don't think there's anything to discuss, Miss Ellis. He gathered his papers without looking at her. We have a professional obligation tonight. Let's focus on that. But that's all. He walked out, leaving her standing alone in the conference room. Naomi sank into a chair, her chest tight. This was worse than she'd imagined. The cold professionalism, the complete shutdown, like she meant nothing, like she'd never meant anything at all. By evening, Naomi felt like she was moving through a fog. She'd gone home to change into the dress she'd bought for the gala, a simple black gown that made her feel elegant and professional. Now, standing in the Plaza Hotel's ballroom, she watched as the room filled with guests. Everything looked perfect. The decorations, the lighting, the arrangement of tables, all their hard work had paid off, but Naomi couldn't feel anything except numbness. You look beautiful. Her father appeared beside her, handsome in his tuxedo. Are you ready? As I'll ever be. Charles studied her face. Have you talked to him? He won't talk to me. He can barely look at me. Give him time. Dad, you didn't see his face. The way he looked at me. Naomi's throat tightened. I don't think time is going to fix this. Naomi, I need to check on the presentations. She walked away before her father could see her tears. The gala began at 7. Naomi stood in the back of the ballroom, watching as guests mingled and servers circulated with champagne. She saw clients her father had worked with for years, investors in expensive suits, community leaders, and politicians. And she saw Vivian. The PR director looked stunning in a red dress that clung to every curve. She stood close to Ethan, laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting on his arm. Naomi looked away. She had no right to be jealous, no right to feel anything. At 8 o'clock, the program began. Charles gave the opening remarks, thanking everyone for their support and explaining the mission of tonight's fundraiser. Then department heads presented on various company initiatives. When Ethan took the stage to introduce the youth program segment, Naomi's heart clenched. He looked so confident up there, so completely in control. No one would ever guess that less than 24 hours ago, his world had been turned upside down. "This program represents what Carter Global stands for," Ethan said, his voice carrying through the ballroom. "Investing in young people who have talent and drive but lack resources. Tonight, you'll hear directly from some of these students about their dreams and their work." He gestured to the side of the stage. "Introducing this segment is Naomi Ellis, who designed tonight's presentation." Naomi? She hadn't expected him to use her name, hadn't expected him to acknowledge her at all. But as she walked onto the stage, she saw something flicker in his eyes, something that wasn't quite as cold as before. Then it was gone, and he was walking past her to his seat. Naomi took the microphone, her hands trembling slightly. She looked out at hundreds of faces, investors, executives, people who could change these kids' lives with their support. "Good evening," she began. "Thank you for being here tonight. The young people you're about to meet are exceptional, not because they've had easy lives, but because they've fought for their education despite every obstacle. They don't need our pity, they need our support, our resources, and our belief in their potential." She clicked to the first slide. "Let me introduce you to Marcus." For the next 20 minutes, Naomi shared the students' stories. She'd interviewed each one personally, learned about their struggles and their dreams. Now she brought them to life for this audience, making them real, making them matter. When she finished, the ballroom erupted in applause. The guests stood, clapping enthusiastically. Naomi's vision blurred with tears, but these were different tears. These were for the kids who deserved this recognition. As she left the stage, she caught Ethan's eye. He was clapping too, and for just a moment, she saw pride in his expression. Then someone blocked her view. Vivian stepped into her path, smiling sweetly. "That was quite a performance," Vivian said. "Very moving. Thank you. I suppose being the boss's daughter gives you confidence." Vivian's smile didn't waver. "Knowing you can't really fail, no matter what." Naomi's stomach dropped. "That's not... Everyone knows now, by the way, about who you really are. I made sure of it." Vivian leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I told you to stay away from Ethan. You didn't listen. So now everyone knows you're just a privileged princess playing at being normal. Why are you doing this? Because Ethan deserves better than someone who lies to him. He and I have history. We understand each other. And once he stops being angry at you, he'll remember what we had." Vivian walked away, leaving Naomi standing alone in the hallway outside the ballroom. She felt sick, cold, like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Around her she heard whispers, saw people glancing her way. The gossip had spread faster than she'd thought possible. By tomorrow everyone in the company would know. Everyone would be talking about the billionaire's daughter who pretended to be an ordinary employee. Naomi pushed through the crowd, desperate for air. She found a quiet corner near the hotel's lobby and sank onto a bench. This was over, all of it. She couldn't stay at Carter Global now, couldn't face the whispers and the judgment and Ethan's cold professionalism every day. She needed to leave, to start over somewhere else where she could be just Naomi, without the Carter name and without this mess. She pulled out her phone and opened her email. Her fingers shook as she typed, "Dear Mr. Carter and Mr. Reed, please accept my resignation from Carter Global Holdings, effective immediately. I apologize for any disruption this may cause. The deception regarding my identity was wrong, and I take full responsibility for it. I wish the company continued success. Sincerely, Naomi Carter." She hit send before she could change her mind. It was done. Ethan stood in the ballroom, accepting congratulations from investors and clients. The gala had been a success. They'd raised more money than projected. The youth program presentations had moved people to tears. But he felt hollow inside. He kept seeing Naomi on stage, sharing those student stories with such passion and grace. She'd been brilliant, everything he'd known she could be, and he'd barely been able to look at her. "Quite an evening," Mark said, appearing at his elbow. "You should be proud. It was a team effort." "Yes, especially Naomi's contribution." Mark studied him. "Have you talked to her?" "There's nothing to say." "Really? Because from where I'm standing, there's quite a lot to say." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She lied to me, Mark. For 2 months. She let me believe she was someone she wasn't." "Did she?" Mark's voice was gentle but firm. "Or did you make assumptions about who she was based on her last name?" "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means maybe you're angrier at yourself than at her. Because you broke your own rule, because you let yourself care. And now you're looking for reasons to push her away before she can hurt you more." The words hit too close to home. "You don't understand. I understand that she's Charles Carter's daughter. I've known that since she started here. Charles told me himself. But you know what else I know? That she's worked harder than anyone else on your team. That she's never once asked for special treatment. That she took this assignment and made it something extraordinary. Mark paused. She didn't lie about who she is as a person, Ethan. She just didn't tell you about her father. That's not a small omission. No, it's not. But is it unforgivable? Before Ethan could answer, Vivian appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. There you are, I've been looking for you. She handed him a glass, her fingers brushing his. Congratulations on tonight. It was perfect. Thank you, but I was thinking we should celebrate. Just the 2 of us, like old times. She moved closer, her perfume overwhelming. Remember how good we were together? Ethan stepped back. Vivian, we've been over for 2 years. Only because of your ridiculous rule about office relationships. But that rule doesn't seem to matter much now, does it? Her smile turned sharp. You broke it for little Naomi Carter. Something in her tone set off alarms. What did you say to her? Nothing she didn't need to hear, that she's not fooling anyone, that everyone knows she's just playing pretend. Vivian sipped her champagne. Poor thing looked devastated. But that's what happens when you lie to people. Ethan's blood ran cold. What exactly did you say to her? Just the truth, that she's a privileged princess who... Where is she? Ethan looked around the ballroom. Where's Naomi? I don't know. She ran off somewhere. Why do you care? But Ethan was already moving, searching the crowd. He found Charles near the stage. Have you seen Naomi? Not for about 20 minutes. Why? What's wrong? Vivian said something to her. I need to find her. Charles' expression darkened. What did Vivian say? I don't know exactly, but it wasn't good. They searched the ballroom together, then the hallways. Nothing. Naomi had vanished. Ethan pulled out his phone and saw an email notification. His heart sank as he read the subject line. Letter of resignation. He opened it and each word felt like a punch to the gut. No, he breathed. No, no, no. What is it? Charles asked. Ethan showed him the email. Charles's face went pale. When did she send this? 20 minutes ago. She's going to disappear. Charles's voice shook. She's going to leave and I won't... He stopped, pain flashing across his face. I just got her back. I can't lose her again. Ethan stared at the email, and suddenly everything Mark had said came crashing down on him. She'd made a mistake. Yes, she'd kept a secret, but she hadn't lied about who she was as a person. She'd shown him exactly who she was. Passionate, dedicated, caring, real, and he'd thrown it back in her face because he was too afraid to risk getting hurt. I need to talk to her, Ethan said. You need to do more than talk. Charles looked at him with a father's protective intensity. That young woman is my daughter. If you go to her, you'd better be sure about what you're doing. Because if you hurt her again, I don't care how good you are at your job, you'll answer to me. I'm sure. And as Ethan said it, he realized it was true. He was sure. I love her, sir. I fell in love with her, and I was too scared to admit it, so I turned it into anger when she gave me the excuse. Charles studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. Her apartment is in Chelsea. I'll text you the address. Thank you. Ethan? Charles caught his arm. Fix this, please. She needs someone who sees her for who she is, not who her father is. I think you're that person, but you have to prove it to her. Ethan nodded and headed for the exit. Behind him the gala continued, people laughing and celebrating, but all he could think about was Naomi's face last night, the tears streaming down her cheeks, the devastation in her eyes. He'd done that to her. Now he had to find a way to make it right. The rain had started again by the time Ethan reached Naomi's building. He stood on the sidewalk, looking up at the lit windows, trying to figure out which one was hers. He'd left his jacket at the gala. His white shirt was soaked through, plastered to his skin. His hair dripped water into his eyes. He probably looked insane. He didn't care. He found her apartment number on the directory and buzzed. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. She doesn't want to see you. Ethan turned. A young woman stood in the building's entrance, holding the door open. She was dressed in pajamas and fuzzy slippers, her hair pulled into a messy bun. You must be Lydia, he said. And you must be the VP who broke my best friend's heart. Her expression was fierce. Give me one good reason why I should let you up there. Because I was wrong. Because I hurt her, and I need to apologize. Because I... His voice cracked. Because I love her and I need her to know that. Lydia studied him for a long moment, rain pouring down between them. Then she sighed. Apartment 4C. But if you make her cry again, I'll make sure you regret it. Understood. She held the door open. Ethan dripped water across the lobby floor. and took the stairs 2 at a time. When he reached the 4th floor, he found apartment 4C and knocked. No answer. "Naomi?" He knocked harder. "Naomi, please. I know you're in there. I know you don't want to see me, but I need to talk to you. Just 5 minutes, please." Silence. "I read your resignation letter. You can't leave. Not like this. Not because of what I said." He pressed his forehead against the door. "I was angry, and I lashed out. But the things I said, I didn't mean them. I was scared. Scared of how much I care about you, scared that I'd fallen for someone who could hurt me. So I pushed you away before you could do it first." Still nothing. "I know you kept a secret, and yeah, it hurt that you didn't tell me. But I understand why you did it. You wanted people to see you, not your father's name. You wanted to prove yourself. And you did, Naomi. You proved you're brilliant and dedicated and everything I thought you were." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I didn't fall for the heiress. I fell for the woman who stayed late analyzing merger reports, who cared more about those kids' stories than about impressing investors, who challenged me and made me want to be better." He swallowed hard. "I fell for you, Naomi, just you." The door opened. Naomi stood there in jeans and an oversized sweater, her eyes red from crying. She looked exhausted and heartbroken, and still the most beautiful thing Ethan had ever seen. "You're soaking wet," she said quietly. "I ran here from the gala." "You ran? That's like 15 blocks. I needed to see you." They stared at each other. Rain dripped from Ethan's clothes onto her doormat. "You should come in," Naomi said finally, "before you catch pneumonia." She stepped aside, and Ethan entered her apartment. It was small but warm, decorated with plants and books and colorful throw pillows. It felt like her. Lydia emerged from what must have been her bedroom. She gave Ethan a warning look, then said to Naomi, "I'll be in my room if you need me." When they were alone, Naomi handed Ethan a towel. He dried his hair and face, trying to find the right words. "I'm sorry," he said, "for last night, for today, for treating you like you didn't matter." "I'm sorry too." Naomi hugged herself, not quite meeting his eyes. "I should have told you sooner about who my father is. I liked being seen as just Naomi, not as someone's daughter, not as a name that carries expectations and assumptions." She finally looked at him. "With you, I felt like I could be myself, and I didn't want to lose that. You wouldn't have lost it, wouldn't I?" Her voice was sad. "You have rules, Ethan. You have walls. And one of those walls is about not trusting people with privilege. People like me." He couldn't deny it. "You're right. I do have walls, because my father trusted the wrong people, and it destroyed him. I promised myself I'd never be that vulnerable." He moved closer. "But then I met you, and you made me want to tear those walls down. You made me want to take the risk, until you found out who I really am. Until I got scared," he corrected. "When I saw you in your father's office, calling him Dad, everything I felt for you terrified me. So I turned it into anger. I told myself you'd betrayed me, that you were just like the people who'd hurt my father. But that wasn't fair, and it wasn't true." Naomi's eyes glistened with fresh tears. "Vivian said you deserve better than someone who lies." "Vivian's wrong." Anger flashed through him. "She's been trying to get between us since the beginning. I should have shut it down sooner. She told me everyone's talking, that they all think I'm just a privileged princess playing at having a job. Then they're idiots." Ethan took her hands, gently, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. "You've worked harder than anyone on my team. You've earned every bit of respect you've gotten. Your last name doesn't change that, but it changes how people see me. Then they're not looking at the right things." He squeezed her hands. "I see you, Naomi. I see who you really are, and I love what I see." Her breath caught. "Ethan, I love you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I love how you care about people. I love how you see the world. I love how you make me want to be better, braver, more honest." He pulled her closer. "I love you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. I'm sorry I hurt you, instead of telling you the truth." Tears spilled down Naomi's cheeks. "I love you too. I've been falling for you since that night you helped me with the market analysis, since you told me about your father and trusted me with your pain." Her voice broke. "And then I broke that trust." "No." He wiped her tears with his thumbs. "You protected yourself, that's different, and I'm done punishing you for it." For a long moment, they just stood there, holding each other, letting the truth settle between them. "I meant what I said in my resignation," Naomi finally said. "I can't stay at Carter Global, not with everyone talking, not with you as my supervisor. Then I'll talk to your father. We'll figure something out. A different department, a different role. Or," he hesitated, "or We both leave and start somewhere new. Together. She pulled back to look at him. You'd leave Carter Global? For you. In a heartbeat. Ethan, that's your career. You've worked so hard. And what good is success if I'm miserable? He cupped her face in his hands. You matter more than any job. More than any rule I made to protect myself. You matter more than anything. Naomi kissed him then, standing on her toes to reach him, her hands fisting in his wet shirt. The kiss was soft and desperate, and full of everything they'd been holding back. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Don't resign, he whispered. Not yet. Let me fix this. Let me make this right. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. He kissed her again gently. I promise. And for the first time since last night, Naomi felt hope bloom in her chest. Maybe this wasn't over after all. Morning light streamed through Naomi's apartment windows. She woke up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, with Ethan asleep in the chair across from her. He'd stayed all night talking until they were both exhausted. Then he'd refused to leave, insisting he'd sleep in the chair just to be near her. Naomi watched him now, his face peaceful in sleep. His shirt had finally dried, though it was wrinkled beyond saving. His hair stuck up in odd directions. He looked nothing like the controlled, perfect VP everyone saw at work. He looked real, and he was here, for her. You're staring, Ethan mumbled without opening his eyes. Naomi smiled. How do you know? I can feel it. He opened one eye, then the other. A slow smile spread across his face. Good morning. Good morning. They looked at each other for a long moment, and Naomi felt something settle in her chest, something that felt like peace. I should go home and change, Ethan said, stretching stiffly. And you need to call your father. He was worried sick last night. Guilt twisted in Naomi's stomach. I didn't even think about him. He must have been so scared when I left. He loves you. Of course he was scared. Ethan stood and came to sit beside her on the couch. But I texted him last night. Let him know you were okay, that we were talking. Thank you. I also told him we need to meet with him today. All three of us. We have to figure out how to handle this. Naomi's stomach clenched. What if there's no good solution? What if I have to leave? Then we'll figure something else out. He took her hand. But let's not make any decisions until we've talked to him, okay? She nodded, trying to believe it would work out somehow. After Ethan left to change, Naomi called her father. He answered on the first ring. Naomi. His voice was thick with relief. Are you okay? I'm okay, Dad. I'm sorry I worried you. Ethan told me you two talked. Really talked. We did. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes. He came here in the rain. He said he loves me. Do you love him? Yes. So much it scares me. Charles was quiet for a moment. Then we'll find a way to make this work. Come to my house this afternoon. Both of you. We'll figure it out together. What about the gossip? What about... We'll handle it, her father said firmly. Together. As a family. Charles Carter's townhouse was in the Upper East Side, a beautiful brick building with ivy climbing the walls. Naomi hadn't been here in months. Walking up the steps with Ethan beside her felt surreal. Her father opened the door himself, still in casual clothes from the weekend. He looked tired, older somehow, but his face lit up when he saw them. Come in, he said. I made coffee. They settled in his study, a room lined with books and filled with comfortable furniture. Charles handed them each a mug and sat down across from them. First things first, he said. Naomi, I read your resignation letter. I'm not accepting it. Dad, let me finish. He held up a hand. You've done exceptional work these past 2 months. You've proven exactly what you set out to prove, that you have talent and dedication independent of my name. I'm proud of you. And I'm not letting office gossip drive you away. But people are talking, Naomi said. They think I was spying or playing games or... Then we'll show them they're wrong. Charles looked at Ethan. Which brings me to you. I need to know your intentions here. Are you with my daughter because you care about her? Or is this about advancement, access, any of the things people will assume? Ethan met his gaze steadily. I love her, sir. That's the only thing this is about. I don't want anything from you except the chance to be with her. And your rule about not dating employees was designed to protect me from exactly this kind of complication. Ethan glanced at Naomi. But some things are worth the complication. She's worth it. Charles studied them both for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, here's what we're going to do. Naomi, you're moving to a new department. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the appearance of favoritism would undermine everything you've accomplished. You'll report to Mark Benson directly as a special projects coordinator. Special projects? Naomi asked. Innovation initiatives, new program development, the things you're actually passionate about. Charles smiled. It's a promotion, not a demotion. You've earned it. Naomi's eyes widened. A promotion with a raise and your own office. Charles looked at Ethan. That solves the direct supervisor problem. You won't be her boss anymore. What about the gossip? Ethan asked. We address it head on. Charles leaned forward. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling an all-hands meeting. I'm going to explain that Naomi is my daughter, that she chose to work here under her mother's surname to prove herself without my influence, and that she's done exactly that. I'm going to make it clear that anyone who has a problem with it can come talk to me directly. Will that be enough? Naomi asked quietly. No, her father admitted. Some people will still talk. Some will still make assumptions. But you can't control what other people think, sweetheart. You can only control how you respond. And the best response is to keep doing excellent work and hold your head high. Naomi felt tears threatening. I'm so sorry, Dad, for putting you in this position, for making everything so complicated. Stop. Charles came around his desk and knelt in front of her chair. You have nothing to apologize for. You wanted to build your own identity, your own career. That's exactly what I would have wanted for you. I'm just sorry the revelation happened the way it did. That was my fault, Ethan said. I reacted badly. You reacted like someone who'd been hurt. Charles stood and faced him. I understand that. Your father's experience shaped how you see trust and risk. But Naomi isn't responsible for your father's betrayal, and she's not responsible for protecting your feelings at the expense of her own dreams. The words were gentle but firm. Ethan nodded slowly. You're right. I know that now. Good. Charles returned to his seat. Now there's one more thing we need to discuss. Vivian Cross. Naomi tensed. What about her? Mark came to see me this morning. Apparently Vivian has been spreading rumors about you for weeks. She's been poisoning the well, so to speak, making sure people would react negatively when your identity was revealed. Anger flared in Naomi's chest. Why would she do that? Because she wanted Ethan back, Charles said, and you were in her way. Ethan's face had gone hard. I need to talk to her. Already handled, Charles said. I spoke with her this morning. She's being transferred to our Los Angeles office, effective immediately. It's a lateral move, not a demotion, but it gets her out of New York and away from both of you. Thank you, Ethan said quietly. They talked for another hour, working through details and addressing concerns. By the time Naomi and Ethan left, she felt cautiously hopeful. As they walked down the townhouse steps, Ethan took her hand. Your father is a good man. He is. Naomi squeezed his fingers. He's trying to make up for lost time, for all the years we weren't close. What happened, if you don't mind me asking? Naomi was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. My parents divorced when I was 8. Mom moved us to Chicago, and Dad stayed here building his company. I saw him a few times a year at first, but then it became less and less. He was always working, always traveling, and I was angry that he chose his business over me. But that's not really what happened, is it? No, she smiled sadly. He was building an empire so he could provide for me. So I'd have every opportunity, but I was too young to understand that. I just knew my dad wasn't there. When did you reconnect? Last year. He reached out, said he was thinking about retirement, and didn't want to miss any more time with me. We started having dinner once a month, then once a week. We were finally getting close again. Her voice caught. That's when he offered me a job, but I was scared that if I worked for him, our relationship would become about business instead of family. So we made a deal. I'd work there for 3 months under Mom's name, prove I could succeed on my own, and then we'd figure out how to handle the announcement. That took courage, Ethan said, both from you and from him. It took trust. Naomi stopped walking and turned to face him. The same kind of trust I'm asking from you. Ethan pulled her close, right there on the sidewalk. You have it, all of it. I'm done being scared. She kissed him, not caring who might see, not caring about anything except this moment, this man, this impossible hope blooming in her chest. Monday morning arrived with crisp autumn air and nervous energy. Naomi dressed carefully in a blue suit that made her feel both professional and powerful. Today, everyone would know the truth. Lydia emerged from her bedroom as Naomi was checking her reflection one last time. You look amazing, like a boss. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. Lydia hugged her. But you've got this. You've done nothing wrong, remember that. The all-hands meeting was scheduled for 9 o'clock. Naomi arrived early, slipping into the back of the large conference room. Employees filed in, whispering and glancing her way. She kept her spine straight and her expression calm. Ethan entered and found her immediately. He came to stand beside her, a silent show of support. Around them, the whispers intensified. At 9 sharp, Charles walked in with Mark Benson. The room fell silent. "Good morning," Charles began. "I know there's been a lot of talk this weekend, so I wanted to address it directly. First, let me confirm what many of you have heard. Naomi Ellis is my daughter. Her full name is Naomi Carter." Heads turned toward Naomi. She fought the urge to shrink into herself. 2 months ago, Naomi asked to work here under her mother's surname, Charles continued. Not because she was hiding something, but because she wanted to prove herself based on merit, not on her last name. I agreed because I understood that desire, and because I trusted her ability to succeed on her own terms. He paused, letting the words sink in. Over the past 2 months, Naomi has done exactly that. She's produced exceptional work. She's contributed to major projects. She's earned the respect of her colleagues through dedication and talent. The fact that she's my daughter doesn't change any of that. If anything, it makes her accomplishments more impressive, because she had to work twice as hard to prove she belonged here without using my name. Someone in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. "I know some of you feel deceived," Charles said, "and I understand that, but I want to be clear. Naomi didn't lie to anyone. She used her legal name. She interviewed for her position. She was hired based on her qualifications. The only thing she didn't do was announce our relationship, and that was my decision as much as hers." Mark stepped forward. "Effective today, Naomi is being promoted to Special Projects Coordinator, reporting directly to me. She'll be leading innovation initiatives and new program development. This promotion was decided before this weekend's events, based solely on her performance." Naomi felt her face heat. A promotion. Her father had really meant it. "If anyone has concerns or questions," Charles said, "my door is open. But I want to make one thing perfectly clear. Naomi Carter is here because she's talented and hard-working. She's earned her place in this company, and I expect her to be treated with the same professionalism and respect as any other employee. That's all." The meeting dispersed slowly. Some people avoided Naomi's eyes. Others nodded as they passed. Rachel stopped and squeezed her arm. "Congratulations on the promotion." "Thank you," Naomi managed. As the room emptied, Ethan touched her elbow gently. "How are you feeling?" "Like I can finally breathe," she admitted. "Good," he smiled, "because we have work to do. Your first innovation project, figuring out how to make the youth program permanent." Her heart lifted. "Really, really. Mark and I discussed it this morning. The gala raised enough money to fund the program for 2 years. Now we need someone to run it. Someone who understands the kids and believes in the mission. I want to do it," Naomi said immediately. "I know. That's why we're giving it to you." Ethan's expression turned serious. "But Naomi, no more secrets between us. Whatever comes up, whatever challenges we face, we talk about it." "Agreed." "Agreed." She looked around to make sure they were alone, then kissed him quickly. "Thank you for standing with me today." "Always," he said. "From now on, it's always." The next few weeks passed in a blur of change. Naomi moved into her new office, small but with a window overlooking the city. She dove into developing the youth program, interviewing students, talking to educators, building something meaningful from the ground up. The gossip slowly faded. Most people seemed to accept Charles's explanation. A few remained skeptical, but Naomi learned to ignore them. She had work to do, and that work mattered more than their opinions. Her relationship with Ethan deepened. They were careful at work, maintaining professional boundaries. But evenings and weekends belonged to them. Long dinners, walks through Central Park, quiet nights at her apartment or his. She learned that he liked old movies and terrible puns, that he couldn't cook but loved watching her try, that he slept on his left side and dreamed about architectural designs, that when he trusted someone, he trusted completely. And she fell more in love with him every day. One Saturday afternoon, Naomi sat in her father's study, just the two of them. They'd been talking about the youth program, but the conversation had drifted to more personal things. "I've missed this," Charles said softly. "Having you in my life, really in it. I've missed it too." Naomi set down her coffee cup. "I'm sorry I was so angry for so long. I understand now that you were doing what you thought was best." "I made mistakes," Charles said. "I should have fought harder to stay in your life, should have made you a priority over work. But you're making up for it now." "I'm trying," he smiled sadly. "I know I can't get back those years, but I can make the most of the time we have left." "Don't talk like that, you're not that old." I'm 58, sweetheart, and I've been thinking about retirement, about slowing down while I'm still healthy enough to enjoy it. Naomi's chest tightened. What would that look like? I'd step down as CEO. Mark would take over. He's ready, and you... He paused. You'd have time to build your own path without everyone comparing you to me, without my shadow hanging over everything you do. Your shadow doesn't bother me anymore, Naomi said honestly. I know who I am now. I know what I can do. Your name doesn't define me. It's just part of my story. Pride shone in Charles's eyes. You've grown so much. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. They talked until evening, mending old wounds and building new bridges. When Naomi finally left, she felt lighter than she had in years. Her father was back in her life, really back, and nothing would take that away again. 3 months after the gala, Carter Global held its quarterly board meeting. Naomi had been asked to present the youth program progress report, her first time presenting to the board. Her stomach churned with nerves all morning. Ethan found her in her office an hour before the meeting. You're going to be great. What if I'm not? What if they think the program is a waste of money? Then you'll show them the data proving otherwise. He sat on the edge of her desk. You've placed 15 students in internships. 3 have received college scholarships. The program has been featured in 2 major newspapers. Those are facts they can't argue with. You're right. Naomi took a deep breath. I can do this. I know you can. He glanced at the door to make sure they were alone, then leaned down to kiss her. I believe in you. The board meeting was as intimidating as she'd feared. 20 executives around a massive table, all watching her with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. Charles sat at the head, his expression neutral and professional, but Naomi had come prepared. She presented her findings clearly, backed up every claim with data, and shared video testimonials from students whose lives had changed because of the program. When she finished, the room was silent. Then one of the board members started clapping. Others joined in. Even the skeptical ones nodded approvingly. Excellent work, Ms. Carter, the CFO said. This is exactly the kind of initiative that sets us apart from our competitors. After the meeting, Charles caught up with her in the hallway. That was remarkable. You had them completely convinced. Thanks, Dad. Naomi grinned. Feels good to win them over. You didn't just win them over. You impressed them. He lowered his voice. Which is why I'm proposing something to the board next month. I want to create a new position. Director of Innovation and Social Impact, and I want you to fill it. Naomi's breath caught. Director, Dad, I've only been here 5 months. And you've accomplished more in 5 months than some people do in 5 years. You've earned this, Naomi. Not because you're my daughter, but because you're exactly the right person for the role. What would Ethan think? What would everyone think? Ethan already knows. He's the one who suggested it. Charles smiled. And everyone else will see what I see. Someone with vision, dedication, and the ability to make real change happen. Tears pricked Naomi's eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll consider it, that's all I ask. She hugged him tight. Thank you for believing in me. Always, sweetheart, always. That weekend, Ethan took Naomi somewhere special. He wouldn't tell her where they were going, just asked her to dress warmly. They ended up on a rooftop in Midtown. Not a bar or restaurant, just an empty space with a view of Manhattan stretching in every direction. The city glittered like stars had fallen to earth. How did you get access to this? Naomi asked, looking around in wonder. I know people. Ethan pulled her close against the evening chill. I wanted to show you something. He pointed across the skyline. See that building? The glass one with the blue lights? Carter Global. Right. And that one there with the green roof? That's where I lived when I first moved to New York. I was 23, broke, and terrified I'd made a mistake leaving Boston. He turned her slightly. That building there is where my father's company used to be, before it went bankrupt. I used to come up here and look at it, reminding myself why I had to succeed, why I had to be perfect and controlled and never let anyone close enough to hurt me. Naomi's heart ached. Ethan, let me finish. He faced her, taking both her hands. I don't see it that way anymore, because of you. You taught me that control is just another word for fear, that being perfect means being alone, that the only way to really live is to take the risk of being hurt. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Naomi's breath stopped. I know it's fast, Ethan said, his voice shaking slightly. We've only been together a few months, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant diamond ring. Naomi Carter, I don't want to marry you because of who your father is. I don't want to marry you because you're smart or talented or beautiful. Though you're all of those things. Tears streamed down Naomi's face. I want to marry you because you make me brave, Ethan continued. Because you see me, really see me, and you love me anyway. Because when I imagine my future, you're in every part of it. Not as someone I work with or someone I'm dating, but as my partner, my equal, my home. He got down on one knee right there on the rooftop with the city spread below them. Will you marry me? Naomi couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. She nodded frantically, laughing and crying at the same time. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms. They kissed under the stars and the city lights, and Naomi felt complete in a way she'd never felt before. I love you, she whispered against his lips. So much. I love you too. He pulled back to look at her, his eyes shining. Thank you for teaching me how. They stayed on that rooftop for hours, talking about their future, about where they'd live, what kind of wedding they wanted, whether they'd have kids, about dreams and fears and everything in between. And through it all, Naomi kept looking at the ring on her finger, marveling at how much her life had changed in half a year. She'd come to Carter Global to prove herself, to show that she was more than her father's name, and she had done that. But she'd also found something she hadn't been looking for. She'd found love, real, messy, complicated, beautiful love, and she'd found herself. 6 months later, Naomi Carter Reed walked through the glass doors of Carter Global Holdings beside her husband. Both of them carried coffee from the shop downstairs. Both wore their wedding rings, simple gold bands they'd exchanged in a small ceremony last month. The lobby was different now, not in any physical way, but in how it felt. This was home, a place where she belonged, not because of her father's name, but because of her own work, her own choices. Morning, Mrs. Reed, the security guard called out. Naomi smiled. Morning, James. How are your kids? Great. My daughter got into that summer program you recommended. Thank you for that. Any time? In the elevator, Ethan pulled her close. Ready for today? Today was big. Charles was officially retiring, and Mark Benson was taking over as CEO. There would be a company-wide announcement, a celebration, and probably a lot of emotions. Ready, Naomi said. Is Dad nervous? Your father? Nervous? Ethan laughed. He's excited. He can't wait to spend more time with you and less time in meetings. They rode up together, splitting up on the 15th floor. Ethan headed to operations. He was still VP, still brilliant at his job. Naomi continued to her office on the 18th floor, Director of Innovation and Social Impact. The title still felt surreal sometimes. Her office was twice the size of her first cubicle, with floor-to-ceiling windows and space for meetings. Pictures decorated her desk, one of her and Ethan on their wedding day, one of her whole family at Thanksgiving, one of the first group of youth program graduates. Lydia poked her head in. Hey, boss lady, your 10 o'clock is here. Naomi looked up. Already, I thought we weren't starting until... She stopped. Her father stood in the doorway, dressed in his usual suit, but smiling more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Dad, what are you doing here? The announcement isn't until noon. I know, but I wanted to talk to you first, alone. Charles came in and closed the door. Is that okay? Of course. Naomi gestured to the chairs by the window. They sat, and for a moment Charles just looked at her. Do you remember when you were 8 years old and you told me you wanted to run a company someday? Naomi smiled. I wanted to be just like you, and I said you'd be better than me. Do you remember what you said? She shook her head. You said, I don't want to be better. I just want to make you proud. Charles's voice was thick with emotion. I think about that conversation a lot, about how young you were, and how much you wanted my approval, and how badly I failed you by not being around. Dad, let me finish. He took her hand. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I built a company and lost sight of what really mattered, but seeing you here, in this office, doing work that changes lives, this is what I'm most proud of. Not the money or the success or the buildings. You, the woman you've become despite my failures as a father. Tears slipped down Naomi's cheeks. You didn't fail me. You gave me everything. I gave you things. But you gave yourself the things that really matter. Integrity, compassion, courage. You chose to be honest even when it was hard. You chose to love even when it was risky. You chose to build something meaningful instead of just successful. He squeezed her hand. That's all you, sweetheart, and I'm so damn proud. They sat together in silence, holding hands, watching the city move below them. What will you do now? Naomi finally asked. After you retire? Travel. Read. Maybe teach a business class or two. Charles smiled. And spend time with my daughter and my son-in-law. Maybe be around for my grandchildren someday. Naomi laughed through her tears. "We just got married, Dad. Give us a minute. I'm just saying. I'm not getting any younger." He stood and pulled her into a hug. "I love you, Naomi. Thank you for giving me a second chance." "I love you too." When Charles left, Naomi stayed by the window, looking out at the city. A year ago she'd stood outside this building, nervous and uncertain, about to start a journey she didn't fully understand. Now she understood. The journey wasn't about proving herself to others. It was about proving herself to herself, about learning that her worth wasn't tied to her father's name or her job title or anyone's approval. It was about learning to be honest, to be vulnerable, to take risks and trust people, and accept that sometimes you get hurt, but that's part of being alive. Knock, knock. Ethan stood in her doorway. "Ready for lunch?" Naomi turned and smiled at her husband, her partner, her love. "Ready." They walked through the office together, hand in hand. People smiled as they passed, not because Naomi was the founder's daughter or because Ethan was a VP, but because they were two people who clearly, genuinely loved each other. At the company-wide announcement, Charles gave a graceful speech about legacy and leadership. Mark accepted his new role with humility and vision. Employees cheered and clapped, and Naomi stood beside Ethan, watching her father step into a new chapter, feeling grateful for everything that had brought her to this moment. That evening, she and Ethan walked home through Central Park as the sun set. Fall leaves crunched under their feet. The air smelled like wood smoke and possibility. "Do you ever regret it?" Ethan asked. "Coming to Carter Global under a different name, all the complications it caused?" Naomi thought about it, about the pain and the confusion and the near loss of everything that mattered. "No," she said finally, "because it taught me who I really am, and it brought me to you, even though I was awful to you at first, especially because of that." She grinned. "You challenged me, made me work harder, made me prove myself, and then fell hopelessly in love with you. That too." She stopped walking and pulled him close. "I used to think love meant losing yourself, becoming smaller so someone else could be bigger, but you taught me that real love makes you bigger, braver, more yourself than you ever thought you could be." Ethan kissed her, soft and sweet. "You taught me the same thing." They continued walking, talking about their plans for the weekend, for next month, for next year, making a life together, building something real. And as they walked, Naomi thought about that girl who'd stood outside Carter Global 6 months ago, the girl who'd been so afraid of being defined by her father's name that she'd hidden part of herself. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who knew exactly who she was, who owned every part of her identity, the Carter name and the person she'd become beyond it. A woman who'd learned that love didn't start with power or control or perfect conditions. Love started when you stopped hiding who you were, when you took the risk of being seen, truly seen, and discovered that you were enough. You'd always been enough, and that truth was worth everything.